Hey, Ecom Masters, welcome to the show. My name is Mike Weiss, Chief Community Officer at Dropified, and as a thank you for tuning in to the e-commerce mastery show, we've put together a special podcast-only e-commerce training just for you. Now, in it, you're going to learn the ins and outs of how to set up your own brand of products where you can literally put your own labels, brands, logos, and messaging over top of top-selling, in-demand, high-quality, high-profit products that are exclusive to supplements, CBD, skincare, and pet products. And here's the key: no minimum order quantities, no upfront inventory costs. And I'm going to show you how to do this in literally minutes. Now, guys, we refined these principles over the course of 5 years with working with over 100,000 of our own e-compreneur customers just like you. So to get immediate 100% free access, all you got to do is go to dropified.com/podcast-special, or you can just click the link below and you're going to learn exactly how we do this in just minutes. Thank you so much for being part of the Dropified family and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to e-commerce mastery. I am so excited to be speaking with Brendan Kane today. And Brendan, if you don't know Brendan, and I mean, you just turn on your internet and you'll either be affected by him or you'll see him. He is literally everywhere. It's awesome. Brendan is outside box thinker, speaker, author, who helps actually empower brands to scale, expand, and accelerate their businesses and influence. He is an author of the international bestseller book, 1 Million Followers, and the newly released book, Hook Point: How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World, which we're going to talk about today. As well, he is the founder and CEO of Hook Point Agency. Brendan has worked with hundreds of individuals and brands providing business and digital strategy for over 15 years. 15 years, it's been crazy. And just to kind of name drop a few people, this has included MTV, Rhianna, Taylor Swift, and many others. He's also spoken at many trade shows around the world. He is very well known. Brendan, thank you so much for coming to us today. And man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's great to connect with you and all the listeners out there.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, we have a real nice show teed up for today, and I can't wait to dive into it. But before we dive in, here's a breakdown of what we're really going to be covering. And again, we do this for every single show. So first things first, we're going to hear more of Brendan's story from, the film student to becoming one of the top social media buying intelligence companies in the world. Next, we're going to actually dive into the meat of this. And what we're going to talk about today is about noise. So everyone knows how noisy it can be outside, sometimes in the morning, lots of horns honking, but we're going to talk about the noise that all businesses compete against to grab customers' attention. And we're going to look at some secret strategies that Brendan used for his celebrity customers like Taylor Swift to win customers' attention. And then finally, we're going to give everyone who is listening an amazing secret. It's the #1 technique used by celebrities like Taylor Swift that Brendan has done, that every business needs to know and adopt immediately if you want to get through the noise. Then we're going to wrap up. How's all that sound, Brendan?
Sounds great.
Cool.
Let's dive in.
Let's do it. All right. So let's start off. Let's hear a little bit more about your story. You have been in the industry for over 15 years, starting out wanting to be a film producer to now becoming one of the top social media buying intelligence companies in the world. Let me ask you right out of the gate, what philosophy do you live by that allows you and think the way that you do? Where did this come from?
Well, I mean, the philosophy really at the end of the day is, how can I provide the most value to anybody I'm engaging with, whether that is 1-to-1 or 1 to a million. Is I go from that standpoint is, who is this person, or who are these people that I'm communicating with? What are the challenges that they're facing? And how can I help them on their journey to overcome that challenge? And I would say that that's, been instilled in me ever since, high school, or maybe earlier on, is just figuring out different ways to connect with people I wanted to connect with, or to stand out, or to get jobs, or to get clients or business. It's just, that's always how I've gone in, is never the mindset of, hey, I want to sell you on something, or I want to sell this product or service. Is just, get to know somebody or get to know a bunch of people and what their challenges are, and then fulfill that in the best way that I can.
Man, there is so much intuitiveness and maturity with that. And you said that you've been kind of like that since high school, and you've been doing really, media buys for the last kind of 15 years. And you've been in this space, mastering your craft for the last 15 years. And you're not an old guy, right? So, so let me ask you, when did this whole thing start with you? Like, what kind of got you into this world? Because, I'm thinking back and, to, 2002, 2003, 2004, like, I mean, internet was there, but I mean, it definitely wasn't the world that we're seeing now, especially for a lot of our younger audience here.
Yeah, the way I really got started when I went to college to study film and wanted to understand the business aspect of it, I quickly realized they teach you very little about business in film school. So I figured, well, the best way to really learn about business and the most cost efficient way at the time, and still holds true today, is to start internet companies. So I started a few internet companies while I was going to college, really just to learn and experiment of what it actually takes to get something up and running, all the missing pieces and things to make it successful, and then how to manage it. So by the time I got to LA to pursue a career in film, that's when the entertainment industry started to reawaken to digital after the dot-com bust, and basically leverage that knowledge and expertise to really stand out and go from making copy and coffees to forming a digital division for the first studio I worked for.
Wow. Wow. And you did that from what I understand from your story, is because you weren't learning business from the school that you were going to, you decided the only way I'm going to figure this out is by doing it myself, starting my own business.
I'm such an experiential learner. Like, it's
Right.
interesting. I don't read a lot of books.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather track down the author and talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
or go out and like try a concept. Like I need to like really, for me to really understand something, I need to do it myself and deconstruct how it works to its simplest form so I can wrap my head around it. Like, I'm not a math genius. I didn't go to Ivy League college or any of that stuff. So I need to distill things down into its simplest forms for it to make sense for me. And I do that by actually doing it. And then once I figure out how things work, then I can figure out how I put the pieces back together and then scale it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's interesting about that too is at some level, when you break it down and you learn how it works, and you're able to put it back together again, essentially you can replicate the model, not for the sake of copycatting or even for the sake of influence. It's so that you can make it better, right? You can figure out where its flaws are. You can figure out what actually the purpose of this thing is and what it's not, and use that in conjunction with other things that you break down and say, cool, if I put this really amazing tool that does this part really well, and I put this tool that does this part really well, then I actually together, this would actually work really well together. I don't know. It sounds to me that's kind of part of where your mind goes. Is that true, or is that accurate?
Yeah, I would also say a big part of why I do that is so I can teach it to other people.
Yes, love it.
I don't want to do it just once, because then if you do it just once, sometimes it's luck. To me, it's like I look for systematic ways to be able to reproduce results over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then, it's even when you say that, what I hear is it sounds like there's this is a lot more about problem solving and the challenge of actually helping other companies stand out, to almost like to operate from the success, and let their success operate from the platform of your success. So whatever it is that you've discovered, teach them so that they don't have to take as long maybe to discover it the way that you did, because you were the pioneer. You paved the way so that they can understand how this works, but then you can actually launch them to the next level. And that's the thing that actually fuels you rather than just recognition. Because again, I saw your face when I was kind of throwing out the accolades, and you're like, yeah, I mean, that's not who I am. That's stuff that I've done. And who I am is way deeper than that. And I love that because, so many people just kind of wear their badges and say, this is who I am. And I just don't get that feeling from you.
Yeah, I'm not, to me, I'm just learning every day. I'm just learning and trying new things. That's it. And some of the things work, some of the things that don't work. And when we find stuff that works, we'd like to share it with as many people as possible. So hopefully it can help them on their journey to success.
Awesome. That's great, man. And I love the attitude. That's sweet. All right, let's dive into both of your books here. Again, it's not to say, hey, he's written a couple books. There's actually good stuff in these books that you need to learn from today. And that's what the goal of today is. So to start, let's talk about the concept of noise. And you talk about noise. You talk about the noise that people are faced with, and you share an amazing stat about the number of messages that are sent out on platforms every single day that you found. And, you reference, other articles, from Forbes and other locations about, just what are people faced with. So would you mind just kind of just sharing some of those stats with us today that you outline in your book?
Yeah, I mean, one stat that's kind of mind blowing is that there's over 60 billion messages sent out on digital platforms each day between push notifications, social media posts, emails, text messages. I mean, just think about how much content you consume on a daily basis. And then there was another fascinating article about Forbes that said the average person's exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads a day. So what that really means is the average
4,000 and 10,000 ads per day. That is just unheard of.
What it really is saying is that the average person ignores 4,000 to 10,000.
I was going to say, I don't remember the 4,000. I might remember two that stood out, but I don't remember the 4,000.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the world that we're living in today. So your job as a marketer, your job as a brand owner is like, how do you stand out amongst that? Because you're no longer living in a world where you're competing against your direct competition. You're competing against every piece of content, every piece of ad. Like it or not, you're competing against Netflix. You're competing against The Rock. You're competing against Kim Kardashian, the news cycle, all of that stuff. So you really need to get good at how you generate that pattern interruption and get somebody to stop and pay attention to what you have to say.
Yeah, and I know that one strategy that a lot of people use, but I'm not a huge fan of it. But it's like when they overwhelm the market, where it's just a post every 2 minutes, and they just have content writers going boo, 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 boo. And they try to create this halo effect, but it's like, oh my gosh, just like, there's other things I want to read than your stupid memes. You know what I mean? Like, but that's not what you're talking about. You're not talking about grabbing their attention by shoving it in their face all day long. You're actually talking about something a lot smarter, aren't you?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say it's smarter. It's just a different approach. We're just, our philosophy is quality over quantity, and really focusing our efforts on content that we believe is going to generate the result that we're looking for, and spend a tremendous amount of time and energy into that to make that work. So that's essentially the way that we look at it, is we analyze every decision we make around the content that we produce, whether it's an organic or an ad, to make sure that we're optimizing it for the highest possible results in return.
So let me ask a couple of questions here that our audience just gives me all the time when it comes to advertising their brands. And because Dropified has that amazing tier where we can give them the ability to flip new brands and new designs and new labels onto the same supplement. So the quality of the supplement doesn't change. It's just the label, very much like you would see with t-shirts, right? You can just flip a bunch of different brands on, or labels and designs to try and fit the market. They asked me this: what is it that customers are actually looking for amidst the noise? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, like it's every customer is different. But now that I'm speaking with you, I would love to get, maybe more generally speaking, what do you find that customers are more responding to? And again, feel free to get as specific or as general as you want with this. But what are they actually responding to in the midst of just the noise?
Well, the first part that you've got to understand is, no matter what your product is, you've got to win the first part of the conversation before you get to the product, because typically the product is not going to create that pattern interruption in and of itself. I'm not going to say that never happens. It can with select products, but I want to talk to the audience and the majority of the people listening to this. So your first job is, how do you just get somebody to stop in that first 3 seconds so you can win the right to the next part of the conversation, whether that's a message you want to share, a story, a product, or a service. Your job as a marketer is to get to stop the scrolling. And that can come in many different shapes or forms. Sometimes that's like the meme card or the headline. Sometimes it's the visual. Sometimes it's the captions. Is really looking at it from that perspective. So the first question will be, well, how do I actually do that? And the place that I like to start is, well, where do people go wrong? The first place people go wrong is they miss that part of, how do I get somebody to stop? And they just go straight into the story. They go straight into the sale, go straight into the product or service. And can you be successful with it? Sure, but you're going to be paying a lot more and your conversion rate's not going to be as high. So that's one place. The second place that people go wrong is they say the same thing in the same way as everybody else. So for example, is like the analogy I give is like, I'm launching a meditation retreat or meditation app. Meditation has been talked about for thousands of years. You type it into Google, there's billions of results. I'm sure the same is for supplements as well. So how do we stop that scroll? So what we need to do is we need to stop saying the same thing in the same way as everybody else and flip it on its head. So one of the tools that we use sometimes is subverting expectations. So a meditation ad may look like meditation is a scam to get that pattern interruption. And then the story comes into play. I'm not talking about clickbait here. So the story may be something along the lines of, have you ever felt that meditation's a scam? Well, if that's you, I feel your pain because I was there. When I first started meditating, I read all these books and they would tell me I need to sit down and clear my head. And every time I would sit down, my mind would race and I didn't know what to do. I thought, am I doing this wrong? Is it just a scam? Does this really work? And that's why today I want to share with you a few strategies that I learned as a non-meditator, somebody that thought it was a scam, to get meditation to work for me, where I meditate every day for the past 10 years. So will you put the link below to check out these 3 strategies? So it'd be something along those lines where I'm just completely flipping the script on what's being said in the market to create that pattern interruption to win the next part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, there's a lot there. And you know what? I want to ask you a lot of questions a little bit later in the show here today about other strategies besides the scam one that you talked about. Because it's funny, I remember hearing you say that on another show, and I actually tried it. And first of all, I realized how many people were kind of doing something like that, but it was a little bit more to your point, is it was clickbait. So they were using it for people to kind of click through, and it'd just be this massive, completely different thing that was going on. And it was super frustrating. And so I tried it, but with the strategy, I think the key there wasn't just the scam bit. It was when people click through, immediately talk to the emotion of the person, empathize with them, let them know that this is what it is that you're talking about. If you think this is a scam, I used to as well, but I want to tell you about X, Y, and Z benefits today, in an attempt to really help right set this and put the right
and that
towards
example, everything that I said would happen within that ad itself.
Oh,
so
okay.
Again, the meditation's the scam, gets somebody to stop, and then the video of me expressing that story follows it within like 2 or 3 seconds of that trolling stop.
Got it. Okay, so that makes a heck of a lot more sense. I love that, and I love that because you're right. It's in the scroll that you're stopping. It's not in the click through and then hear the message afterwards. That's really good.
And I would also say a big issue that people run into with designing hooks or just designing ads in general is they don't understand the distinction of what their core customer wants versus what they need. So a lot of us develop products or supplements or whatever it is based on what we know the customer needs, but the customer doesn't know they need it yet. So you may need to start with what they want to get them to what they need.
Right.
So for example, is like with my first book, 1 Million Followers, How I Built a Massive Social Audience in 30 Days, I'm playing to what people want. Is they want followers. But the content of the book is I wanted to have a conversation about what they really need. They need to have the proper mindset. They need to understand how to test content. They need to know how to create shareable content, understand the value of strategic partnerships and those things. Yes, I talk about follower growth, but I hook them in with what they want to deliver them what they need. So as developing a supplement or a new label or things of that nature, really understand the distinction between the two. So what do people want? Do they want energy? Do they want to sleep better, relieve anxiety or stress? Like, what is it they really want versus what are you trying to provide them from what you think they need at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I really, really like that. And you know what? I find that business owners sometimes they can kind of get so lost in their time. And I'm a slave to this as well sometimes, is I'm so used to talking about, the things that I'm passionate about that I forget that if I'm talking to you and you've never heard of the thing that I'm talking about. So for example, like Dropified, I'm so used to talking about Dropified, it just rolls off the tongue. But sometimes I say it because I'm like, okay, they want this and because that's what I think that they want. Okay, they need to know. Sorry, I want to tell them, just the elevator pitch, or I just want to tell them the 5 or 6 points about what Dropified is. But then when I look at their faces, sometimes it's just I completely overwhelm them, and I'm like, why is this overwhelming for you? Like, this is common sense, and yet I have to come back and realize, whoa, I have to sit in a different set of shoes here, and almost invite people around me to tell me, how does this hear, like, how does this sound, where am I losing you? And this is something that you do when you work with any brand or any person. So can you talk to us a little bit about that strategy and about why it's so powerful?
Well, you hit it on the head is when we're developing a product, and especially something that we work on for an extended period of time, it's very hard to see the forest through the trees, as
Hmm.
we just get so ingrained in what we know it to be, what we know the value to be, and not thinking about when we're designing an ad or designing creative, what is the experience of the person on the other side of the screen? And that most people, when they're designing an ad or content, they're designing it for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not designing it for the other person. And
It's
that
true.
comes from different elements of it, from the hook down to, we have a communication framework that we integrate into every creative that we generate for ourselves and our client, that understands that people perceive the world in different ways. And
Hmm.
we need to communicate with them differently based upon how they perceive it. So you really need to think and take yourself out of your shoes and put yourself in the customer's shoes of how they're perceiving their world, how
Hmm.
they perceive language, how they perceive phrases, how they perceive a problem, a challenge, an opportunity. Again, the difference between the need and the want. All of those things need to be taken into consideration in order to develop an effective campaign, an effective product, an effective label, effective logo, all those
Hmm.
things.
Oh, that's great. And guys, I just want anyone that's listening right now, if you feel like that this is just kind of flying over your head, I would just encourage you just to pause for a second, go back and just rewatch literally what Brendan just said in the last two segments here, because it is like just absolute gold. Even just put a pen and paper out and just putting the key points down, because it is just insane. And it's going to make what we talk about next it's going to start making a lot more sense when you start understanding that this isn't just something coming out of Brendan's brain, that this is actually rooted in some, pretty, in some pretty foundational roots of psychology and behavioral psychology and testing, right? This isn't just an idea that Brendan's trying. This is actually, there's a lot of science to this, and a lot of proven history, where this has been working and why it's been working. So Brendan, is it all right? Can we jump into a little bit of a psychology talk here? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Cool. I have a couple of questions here. So on other podcasts that I've heard you talk about, you reference Frank Luntz's book about it's not what you say, it's what people hear. And I know that I've heard you say that before. And for anyone that haven't read Frank's book, it really talks about ultimately like 10 rules of successful communication. And using this reference, and we can go through what the 10 rules are, in a nutshell if you wanted to, but ultimately these 10 rules, using these 10 rules as a reference, what are some of, in your opinion, what are some of the essential musts that an e-commerce business needs to pay attention to when they are deciding to launch their own brands through the noise to grab attention?
So let me distill this down into just two key things. And if you can do
Sure.
these two key things, you'll be successful in
Mhm.
today's world. Number one is, how do you get somebody to stop and pay attention? How do you win the first part of the conversation? And number two, once you have that attention, how long can you retain that attention for? If you can do those two things, you will win. You'll win from an organic perspective, because that's how all the algorithms work. I don't know if you saw The Social Dilemma. It
Mhm.
articulates this perfectly, of how they determine which content they see to people versus which content they don't. And number two, from a paid perspective, the better that you can get at it, your costs will ultimately drop. So your first job, and this is really why I spent 2 years putting together the information in the book Hook Point, is how do you initially win that first part of the conversation to get them to the real value that you're going to be providing to them. Secondarily, it's looking at the fact that you should never be selling anything. My friend was telling me the other day about a interview that he was watching with Bob Pittman, the founder of MTV. And Bob Pittman said that you cannot sell anybody anything. All you can do is solve their problems. Like that's your job. It's just to solve problems, not to sell product. And the minute that you can start looking at your consumer from a standpoint of how do I express how I'm going to solve a big problem or challenge for them instead of how am I going to sell them this product or service, that will ultimately help you stand out amongst the noise, because what do all of the people do in the marketplace? They sell product. And I understand that's your business. That's how you make money.
Yeah, like that's your end goal.
But it's how do you convince somebody to buy something? It's you provide value. You overcome a challenge for them. You help them on a journey that they're set out to go on. And one of the people I interviewed in Hook Point is one of the top copywriters in the world and has sold over $1 billion worth of product on social media. And a lot of it is in the supplement and health and wellness space. And what he expressed is the minute that you can articulate somebody's problem to them better than they can articulate it to themselves, you automatically win their attention, you win their trust, and ultimately you'll win that transaction.
So let me ask you, now I come from a big background on face-to-face and I mean, digital obviously, helps scale that a lot more, but I just love a good old fashioned B2B, meeting where you can just watch someone as they're talking to you about, how quickly can they push you out the door, and then you can kind of see their insecurities kick in. And anyway, I love it, right? Because my background's in psychology, and so I use that obviously when I'm having conversations. But how do you know what people's problems are before you advertise?
I mean, you do research.
Yeah.
You go, like anything else, you go talk to people, you look at what's trending online, what are the latest news crazes, articles, that will give you a good indication. Also, I always do competitive analysis. What are other people doing in the marketplace? And, 9 times out of 10, that looking at competitors, you'll learn more about what they're doing wrong than what they're doing right. But sometimes you will see people that are killing it and dissect it from there. So it's really, at the end of the day, is ask your friends, ask your current customers what's going on. Do research of what's happening in threads. You can go to Reddit. There's so many different places. But still, at the end of the day, of you studying psychology, you know that most people are struggling with the same problems and the underlying themes and trends of those problems and challenges that they want. People want to be healthy. They want to be happy. They want connection. They want to be recognized. They want to make money. All of these different things. There's underlying things that drive us as human beings that you can look at from a subconscious level of what people are experiencing in their daily life, and then back into that to craft your messaging.
Yeah. Russell Brunson refers to it as the health-wealth relationship, and where are you trying to target people at, because his argument that he uses in his books is that those are the 3 fundamentals that you're talking about that people are looking for to help better themselves, right? And I mean, I don't know if I fully agree with it being so simple, but I definitely understand the fact that you got to get beyond the checkbook and you got to get beyond that's dating myself. You got to get beyond the credit card payment. You got to get beyond the bank, the money that you're going to get in your bank, and you actually have to jump in and understand your customers. One thing that that I used to do, that I love this because it pairs really well with what you're talking about is, whenever I was in a job, I'm talking about like years ago, when I was at a frontline entry level, whatever, phone salesman type position, I never wanted to look at, what the best person was doing necessarily. Actually, I always wanted to look at my boss. I always wanted to talk about from the boss, because ultimately I remembered that I would be on the phone taking 80 or 90 phone calls a day, trying to sell these people, at the time, telecom services. But I realized, like, what the heck is all this for? And how can I start thinking at a different level than just winning this next sales call? And I started talking to my leaders and kind of trying to overhear the conversations they were having with each other, so I could figure out what mattered to them. Because ultimately I'm here to try and make them look good, and then move on and move on and move on. And I figured out that pyramid pretty quick. And it was amazing how the way I was thinking was way off, because I realized that for every sale that I was making, there were 3 others that were canceling because of the strategy that we were using for selling. And yet I don't see that. I'm in my silo, because all I cared about is my money, my money, my money. But the second that I kind of branched out and I realized, what is it that these guys actually need, it changed my direction. And I think you had a pretty similar experience to that when you were just getting started out and you were trying to kind of find your feet in the film industry. Is that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I moved, I wanted to produce movies, and like everybody else, you start at the bottom, you make deliveries and coffee and copies and things of that nature. And then obviously you look for those ways to break in and capture the attention of the head of the studio, or an actor, a director, or a screenwriter, and just quickly realized that there was tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people moving to LA every year to be a film producer.
Mm-hmm.
So the minute that you express yourself as a film producer, wanting to produce films in that way,
Yeah.
you get brushed off very quickly. So I had to take a step back, and like you did, is really listen. What did people need in the office?
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is that they invest tens of millions, in some cases hundreds of $1 million into these movies. And the minute it's done, there's a sense of anxiety and tension that overcomes the office with, okay, we spent all this money, then how do we ensure that people actually show up
Yeah. Is this going to work?
opening
Yeah.
weekend to recoup our expense?
Yeah.
And in the movie industry, it's very different than any others. And I'm excluding like the Avengers type Marvel
Yeah.
movies,
The
because
giant. Yeah.
those are few and far between. I mean, everybody points to those, but most movies, you're having to create a brand from scratch, and you're having to do it within months instead of years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that brand has to reach hundreds of millions of people around the world in order for you to have a chance at breaking profit.
Mm-hmm.
So in hearing all of that, and at the time that I first started out, there were questions about how do we more cost efficiently market our movies. There were questions about digital platforms, about social media as it was really emerging on the scenes. And I just leveraged my hook of, hey, I created a few internet companies while I was going to college. I'd be more than happy to guide you and help you in that way. And then, to cost efficiently create strategies to
Mm-hmm.
push the movies out to millions of people. And as soon as that shift in my language and the ways I was positioning myself, then started opening up those doors to getting into big meetings with directors, actors, studio heads, things of that nature, to provide that unique value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? I love that, because I mean, I think you hit it with language, right? People can tend to, and I say people, probably more speaking to myself than anybody, to say 10 words where I only really need to say 1 or 2, and that was why actually that's to kind of,
Well, the biggest thing is listening. Most people
exactly
don't
right.
listen.
It's not about, actually, sorry, I just interrupted you. So really I'm not a good listener.
But
But
that's where it's like when we're developing hook points for our clients,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
we'll
let's talk about that.
we'll sit there for an hour, hour and a half, and all I do is ask questions and listen to what they say. And within
Mm,
what they say, it tells me a lot about what makes them unique, what makes
mm,
them different, what strategies are going to work, what strategies are not going to work. But if I just went into that and was just talking the entire time, I'm not going to get anywhere with that. So most of the time when I'm working with clients, like, people are kind of shocked with how little I say. and how quiet I am, because I am just listening intently to those just one nugget. Sometimes it'll take me 10 minutes, sometimes it'll take me 90 minutes. And I'm just looking for that one thing that they say
Mm.
that I can extract out and be like, okay, that is your hook. That's how you're going to attract attention. That's how you're going to reach critical mass and scale. And then expressing, okay, this is how you package it. This is how you go after that market in a meaningful way.
Hi there, Ecom Masters. Mike Weiss here again with a friendly reminder that you've unlocked access to our exclusive podcast-only training on how to create your own supplement, CBD, pet, or skincare brand in just minutes, where we're going to break down from A to Z exactly how to put your own design on top-selling products and start selling in just minutes. It's incredible. Now, the principles that you're going to learn are exactly the same principles that we've used with our customers who did over $2 billion. That's right, with a B, $2 billion in sales last year alone. You cannot afford not to take me up on this free training. So to get immediate 100% complimentary access, all you got to do is go to dropified.com/podcast-special, or you can just click the link below in the show notes. I will see you soon. You know, what I hear that when you say that, what I hear is don't be quick to respond, don't be quick to answer, don't be quick to give your opinion, because yours is A, isn't the only opinion, and B, you might be going that way when you should be going this way. And you're only going to know that if you can sit back, be patient, and listen. And in this case, when we're transferring that over to, say, the listeners that are listening today, for their businesses, is as you're creating, say, new brands, you know, for you, if you are using private label on demand and you're thinking about the next brand over Q4 or Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or you don't have a lot of time to kind of come up with these ideas, but you do, because there's 24 hours in a day, and you can spend I would just recommend spending most of that time just listening to what people are asking, what they want, and don't be afraid to go out there and ask for what they want, like Brendan's saying right now. Because it's amazing. I can't tell you how many times people have actually told me exactly what they want me to sell them. and then all I do is I make that for them, and then I sell it for them. You know, hey, can we have a gay gift? Can I customize this with my face on it? Can I, whatever. And because we can flip labels super fast, I mean, it's amazing, right? And then it's funny because they want those reordered because they want to have a stock of it. And it's just hilarious because that's a model I never thought would work before, but it's there. Can I talk, I would love to transition into subverting expectations, because you had talked about that earlier. And can we talk about the 3 key pillars of developing a hook point that you mention a lot, in your book and in other shows that you've had? Can you unpack, those 2 kind of models a little bit more for us and for our listeners, and explain why, when or how this is a powerful strategy to use for our listeners today?
Yeah, so let's start with the 3 core pillars. The 3 core pillars are the hook point, or the 3 core pillars of a hook point is 1, grabbing attention, getting somebody to stop in that first 3 to 5 seconds, so that you can get to the second core pillar, is the story that you're going to tell that person once you have their attention. And the third is, are you doing it in a credible way? Do people believe you? Do people trust you? And all 3 have to play together, because if you don't grab the attention, you never get to the story.
Mm-hmm.
If you grab the attention, but your story sucks, you lose that attention. If you grab the attention, your story is good, but people don't believe it,
Right.
It falls apart. So when we talk about subverting expectations can be used for that first pillar, for flipping something on its head to just create that pattern interruption to get somebody to stop to get to that story. So when we do meditations to scam, I'm doing that to get them to stop in the feed to get to that next part of the conversation. Or when I say, hey, I generated 1 million followers in 30 days, that's the first pillar. Now let me show you how I did it, which is the story that I then expressed to them. So we had another video go viral online, and it was, if you remember the saying, and it's been around for a while, is don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
Well, we did a meme card that said sweat the small stuff. Or we did another one where it was warning in all caps with capitalizations, safety is dangerous.
You're right. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
those
Interesting.
are different ways that we kind of subvert the
Yeah.
expectations and play it on its head. But what you mentioned before is you want to make sure that the story that you're expressing through subverting that expectation matches that, so it doesn't come off like clickbait.
Yeah.
Because the minute it comes off like clickbait, you're going to lose that second and third pillars. You're going to lose people in that story if the story is completely different than the way you brought them in, or they're just going to lose trust and credibility because they feel like you're just tricking them into paying attention to something that didn't mean anything to what you brought them in through.
Right. Yeah. It's I think I've seen a few times. What was it? If you're reading this probably isn't for you. And I'm like it's piqued my interest. I'll go in and I'll click on it. And then I look at it and it's just like, it literally was not for me. I think it was
another example of subverting expectations that we all know is the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
That's subverting expectations. And it's funny because I was listening to an interview with Tim Ferriss, and he said he gets so frustrated when people ask him questions. Do you really work 4 hours a week? Because he knows they didn't read the book. But the 4-Hour Work Week is subverting expectations. It's against everything that we know. And that's why that book is successful. And Tim talked about how he A/B tested his headlines and titles prior to choosing that. But that's the perfect example of subverting expectations that worked extremely well and really put his brand on the map and helped him sell millions of copies of books.
Wow, man. Yeah. And you're right. That would be frustrating if I wrote a book that was like that and people kept
I get it with the 1 million followers thing.
That's true.
Too.
Yeah.
People are like, they look at my accounts and like, they've obviously haven't read the book, but my team collectively has generated probably over 50 million followers and 50 billion views online. Wow. And yet they only look at my accounts and judge everything based on my accounts because they've failed to actually dive into the book and read why I did what I did and how I did what we did and collectively as a group, what we've done for other clients.
That's interesting. Let me ask you that. And there's a few other questions I have here, and I do want to be respectful of your time here as well. But if you'd indulge me, does that, you're talking about your trust being your third pillar there, right? So does that actually work against you with that last pillar? Because if people are looking at your account, they didn't read the book, and I get that, but let's just say that's actually part of maybe the problem is there's that negative, it's almost like the backhand that can come in when you're trying to do this, where you're saying the 4-hour work week with Tim Ferriss, right? Well, do you actually work 4 hours? No. Oh, okay. Well, you must be a scam. That must be a lie. That was a trick, right? And the same thing with yours is when they say 1 million followers, yeah, they didn't read the book, but immediately there's negative connotation that kicks in when they look at it. And that's not immediately followed with the way that they need that to follow. Do you ever find that, or is there a risk of that?
There's always a risk, but the thing that you've got to wrap your head around is as you scale, you're always going to get negative feedback no matter what.
Yeah, that's true.
Really what I'm less worried about that feedback, and I'm more worried about, did somebody actually read the book and not get value out of it, not enjoy it? That's the part that can really hurt you, is if you're putting a product into the marketplace that doesn't deliver on the promise or the hook and give immense value. Now, with my book, all I'm saying is, this is how I did it. This is how my partner's done it. I'm not guaranteeing anything for people. It's like, we've had people that have done better with our strategies than we've done. We've had people that have done nothing with them. But all I'm saying is, listen, this is how I did it. This is the information from myself and other growth experts on how they present it. And as long as people get value out of it, that's the biggest concern that I have. Now, does that mean that everybody reads the book, loves it? No, we have some people that hate it, but a majority of people see the value in it and like it. So that's what I'm really paying attention to, because those people that make those comments, they're not making it from the standpoint of, I've actually read this, or I've actually participated in this, and I don't see value in it. And a lot of people can see through it. And even in our ads, we've sold so many books that we have people that will actually fight that battle for us. Well, they'll go into the comments and be like, dude, you haven't even read the book. You should go check it out. I loved it. I got immense value out of it. So that's really how I look at it. But you've got to understand, as you reach scale, you're gonna get negativity, especially in the polarized society that we live in today. It's gonna happen. So you've got to prepare yourself mentally for it, and understand which one should I pay attention to improve what I do versus the ones that, yeah, there's no way you're going to appease them, and you've just got to push those aside.
Yeah, no, and that's good. I love that. And I'm happy that you said that too, because I think a lot of our folks that are seeing scale, they get that, and there's always going to be people that try to come in and be that one thumb down or that one, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to be disruptive or stand out that way themselves, but it's not a reflection necessarily of how they felt about your material.
And I'm not going to claim that it's easy.
Sure.
I'm not going to say that it doesn't impact me when we get negative stuff. It does. I mean, I'm a human being like all of us. But you've got to find ways to compartmentalize it and pay attention to the things that are going to help fuel you going forward. And as long as you know that you're doing the best that you can and you're providing the value at the utmost level, at the end of the day, that's all you can do.
No, that's good. I love this. So we've talked about some great strategies in play here, but for a lot of our audience, they are asking a lot of questions around, especially, coming into Q4, a lot of questions around budgets, right? So how much budget should I be putting in for my marketing? And, how much percentage for each budget should go here? And they're looking at a bunch of, gurus out on YouTube, and they're, you know what I mean? They're talking about scaling, obviously, for Q4 because it's the big thing. But you have been known to actually break the traditional marketing mindset as it pertains to budgets and scale. And so can you tell our audience a little bit more about this? What is the traditional mold? Why do you think businesses have it? And why are you trying to break it? And what are you trying to replace it with?
Yeah, I hate budgets. When it comes to things like marketing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, you've got to understand, marketing is not a fixed cost. It's fluid. And if you want to look at scale, if you want to be scalable, you want to sell a lot of products, you want to make a lot of money, it's purely math. It's for every dollar I spend, how many dollars do I get in return? If I spend $1 and I only get 50 cents in return, obviously that doesn't work. We're losing money. So I'm going to stop spending on that right away. But if for every dollar I spend, I make $3 in return, what are you going to do? You're going to say, how many dollars can I spend into that?
Yeah.
Like literally, if I said to you, give me $1 right now.
Well, I have a loonie because I'm in Canada, so it's worth like 10 cents you're in. So
yeah, but it's like, again, it's like you ask that question to anybody listening is, if I say to you, give me $1, and for every dollar you give me, I'll give you $3 back. You're going to say, well, how many dollars can I give you?
How many times can I do that? Yeah.
And for whatever reason, people don't think that way. If people come up to me and they say, well, how much should I pay this social media contractor? How much should I spend on Facebook ads? How much should I spend on YouTube ads? I have no idea, because I need to know the fundamentals of your business. I need to understand what the lifetime value of your business is. What is your profit margin? What are you willing to spend to acquire a customer? And then when you get to that level, then it's so easy to test and so easy to scale, because you know what you're looking for when you're testing. And when you find it, then you put as much money into it until it breaks, until it hits a ceiling. Right. And that's how companies have made billions of dollars and billions dollar valuations in years instead of decades, because they adopt that mindset. So to those people that you're talking to is like, well, how much did I spend on a Cyber Monday sale or Black Friday sale or for Q4? I can't answer that for you. You can't answer that for them, because it's dependent on each individual's business. But you've got to look at it as a simple math formula of understanding your business, understanding what you can spend on a client, how much money you make into return, and that will dictate when and how you scale, when and how you spend money.
Absolutely. And for those of the listeners actually that are using Dropified's private label on demand platform, that we've mentioned a couple of times here, but again, you're able to sell supplements, CBD, skincare, pet products at scale because there's no upfront inventory costs, right? So you can literally flip different labels around, which means that you're going to go out into the market and you're going to test with these different designs to see what's going to work. Again, and I know that you're not foreign to supplement companies. You work with extremely, extremely large, supplement companies, but does this change at all for supplement companies when they think about budget, when they think about return?
No.
Should they?
And I'll give you an example, and I can't tell you the client name, but
Sure, that's fine.
I got brought into a supplement company, and I was asked to do an overall analysis of the business, and they had this mindset. And I found this one, it's a relatively big company. There's hundreds of employees, and I found this one young kid just almost sitting in the basement that was an Amazon expert. And I was looking at his numbers, and he was doing like $1 million a year. And I was like, this is profitable. Why aren't you scaling this? And he's like, well, it's because I've been only given a budget and they won't give me more budget. And I went straight to the president who brought me in. And I was like, listen, this guy right here, you need to give him as much budget as you possibly can to reach the ceiling. Now, 2 years later, 2 years later, we're doing 100 million on Amazon.
Wow. Just on Amazon?
Yeah.
Holy crap. In 2 years?
Yeah.
Holy, is that?
Now, listen, it's not like we just started pumping a bunch of money in and it just automatically worked.
No.
A lot of other elements that went into it.
Yeah.
But it started with that mindset.
Yeah.
And I can bet you more than anything, the people that are successful on your platform versus the people that are not successful on the platform are the people that have found that math formula that allows them to basically make it an ATM machine.
Yeah.
As you just keep putting it in and it keeps printing out cash. And I'm not, it is that simple.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's necessarily easy. Like you've got to figure out the mechanics of how to make it work. But once you do, it is like printing cash.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I 100% agree. A lot of my background's in Amazon as well. So it's not as easy as let's just put more money in, because there's a lot of other,
Well, yeah, I mean, I can tell you, like with my books, for example, we're capped. We have a ceiling. Yeah. We can only spend a few $1,000s. I think we spend like between $3,000 to $6,000 a month on Amazon ads for my book, because like that's the ceiling that we have.
Yeah.
So, but we're successful with it. We sell a ton of books, but that's where we've hit the ceiling with Amazon. So then we go to Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, we hit the ceiling there. Yeah. Then we go to YouTube. Then we go to Quora. Then we go to Reddit. We go all these things, and you will hit ceilings on certain platforms, and then you diversify. So with that supplement company, we still haven't hit the ceiling with Amazon. It's growing like crazy. But then we go to Instacart. Then we go to Walmart.com, Target.com, Shipt.com, all of these, and maximize the attribution out of all of them to collectively raise the company to the revenue that they want to hit.
Unbelievable. Hey, did you ever follow up with that kid? Is he still in the basement?
Oh, I still work with them.
Oh, do you? So he's not still in the basement?
No. He's a rock star now.
He's got an office.
Yeah, he's done so much for the company, and sometimes it's just as simple as that, is shifting the mindset of how you approach things.
Totally. Just to kind of tie this one up here, and then we'll move on here to our last kind of couple points is, for all those that are listening that actually have their own, whether it's supplements, CBD, pet, or skincare lines, with Dropified private label on demand, sometimes you do need to actually sacrifice profitability upfront, but it's so that you can play the long term, right? And and that's because you're probably not going to be making enough margin up front, but when you're using different strategies like subscription models, creative, remarketing to help increase, the lifetime value, custom, bundle packages that you can use in your retarget to help increase your AOV or average order value, you're probably not going to be seeing a lot of profitability out of the gate. I shouldn't say probably. Sometimes you may not see profitability right out of the gate, but that's the trade-off for the long-term play, because you're going to be having that MRR coming in. Have you found that as well, Brendan, or am I just?
Yeah, and that's where like lifetime value becomes critically important, is understanding that. Like, for example, all of our Facebook and Instagram campaigns for our books, we're trying, our goal is just to get a 1 ROAS. Right. It's just to spend $1, make $1 back. And sometimes we're successful with that, sometimes we're not.
Yeah.
But like, we're just playing off of building leads at scale and then converting those leads over the long term to maximize profit value. So that's the business that I'm in. And like you said, each business is different, but a lot of things, especially supplements, depending on the profit margin and the pricing, it can be difficult to create profit off that first transaction or sale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you know what? As long as you're breaking even, I love that model too. As long as it didn't cost you anything, then it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right?
and it'll scale. It'll start, your brand awareness will compound on itself.
Cool.
So if you can get it to break even spending $1,000 a month, that 100,000 keeps compounding and building brand awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. My last point and question for you, Brendan, before we have you share the number one technique that is used by celebrities like Taylor Swift that every business needs to learn and adopt immediately in order to grab attention. It is this, but you didn't just come up with this philosophy for media buys. You actually grabbed this from, like we had talked about earlier with psychology, behavioral psychology, and came up with something called the 6 different ways that people perceive the world. I love this. I would love for you to be able to help, reveal these 6 different ways, unpack that for our listeners who are able to, remember, create these unlimited label design templates. And it's not a one size fits all, because there are 6 different ways that people can perceive the world. Can you talk to us a little bit about what those 6 different ways are and unpack that for us here?
Yeah, and it plays into what we were talking about earlier, is when people are designing content, they're designing it for themselves, not the audience. So we have a communication framework that's used by NASA, Pixar, Bill Clinton, Audi to connect at scale. Our whole agency is built around it. We've actually hired one of the master trainers in the world in this. And basically what this communication framework says, after collecting 40 years of data and doing over 1 million profiles of people in North America,
Wow.
is there's these 6 different ways that people perceive communication, perceive the world, perceive everything. So there's one that perceives the world through thoughts and logic. So it's like data, facts, ingredients, things of that nature. Then there's people that perceive the world through feelings and emotions. I don't care about data and facts. They care about, how is this going to make me feel?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's people that perceive the world through values and opinions. They want to hear people's opinions. They want to know, can I trust this? Then there's people that perceive the world through humor and fun. Is this fun? Is this exciting? Is this going to be an awesome experience? They're the people that be like, I hate this, I love this type scenario. Then there's people that perceive the world through actions. Like the perfect example is Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. He's not thinking, he's not feeling, he's just running.
Yeah.
Those movies are entirely, is just him running from scene to scene. And then there's people that just reflect on the world. They're like the Albert Einsteins, the people that just stare out in the world, stare out the window and just kind of digest everything that's happening and coming up with that. So you, in selling a supplement or a product or anything, you've got to understand that. Because if, for example, like I perceive the world through thoughts and logic, if I create an ad that only speaks to data and facts, it's probably going to alienate 75% of the North American population. So for me, I've got to create an ad or express my supplement based upon the data, the facts, the feelings and emotions, the values and opinions, actions, reactions, and things like that. So I'll do my best job at just coming up with one on the spot to say, hey, this supplement you should check out because it by far has the best ingredients ever. It's got all these different ingredients, and then you list it out. And when you take it, you're going to feel so calm. You're going to feel so good. And I firmly believe that this is the right choice for you because this product, bottom line, is far superior. And when you take it, you're going to have so much fun because your energy is going to be up. It's going to make you the life of the party. So what I did is I just took the same product and contextualized it in different ways for the different ways that people perceive the world.
Yeah. And if I love that. And I was going to say one thing I think that makes that sink in just a little bit stronger is even further is instead of you, Mr. CEO, telling us about this supplement, or you, Mr. Doctor, telling us about your supplement, if that exact same message can come from, testimonials or, users that feel like that this person's like me. Hey, I'm a dad and I have 2 kids and I needed this in order to play with my kids. because I work night shift, and because of that, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? That's not going to hit everybody, but then you have another testimonial that's going to hit, hi, I'm a single mom, or hey, I'm someone that was just got
Yeah,
laid
and you can
off.
edit them together.
Yeah, and then you start doing these sandwiches, right? Like these testimonial sandwiches, and it's like there's so many cool things you can do with that. But I love it because what you're talking about is don't just say the words, use what we're talking about with Frank's book, use what we're talking about with oh my gosh, I totally just forgot it. Subversive. Um, what was the term? Sorry, I apologize.
Subverting expectations.
Subverting expectations. Sorry, thank you. Use what we're talking about with subverting expectations. Use what we're talking about with the 6 different ways that people perceive the world, and just think about it for a second and make sure, almost like a checkbox, is this hitting kind of all these things? Bring in people that maybe perceive the world in different ways. I used to do that with the financial company I used to work at, actually. We'd bring in, I think, 9 or 10 different people, and so we'd kind of pepper in people that thought about the world differently, and we would just talk about a subject. We'd go around the room and say, what does this mean to you? And we would have a scribe that would go in, and it was a super long process, but we ended up landing our avatars and figuring out how we needed to position products a lot better, and we saw massive success through that. So I mean, guys, this isn't just like a nice psychology experience. Like, this is real stuff. Like, if you're not seeing your ads and your content performing the way that you want to, you don't have to throw it out. Just look at it and try and look at it from a different lens. And if you can't do that, because let's face it, I can't look at through 6 different lessons. I don't have a multi-personality 6 view thing going on. I got to invite people in and take a look at that, and then give me feedback. What does this mean to you? Are you getting anything from this? What do you see? What do you feel? What data are you hearing? What action are you seeing? And then you start going through it with other people. And then trust me, you're going to get a real honest answer on how that ad is and how you need to change it. Maybe what you have is good for some people, but how can you add to it to make sure that it actually adopts to other people? I didn't want to summarize that too simply, but is that a strategy that folks can go through?
In a simplistic way, is just like, how does this make sense for the consumer? What is the data and facts about it? How does it make somebody feel? What are your opinions and beliefs on this product? Is it fun? How is it fun? Or is it awesome? Or is it great? And then the bottom line, is this the best product in the marketplace? If you can just focus on those 5 things,
I love that,
you'll hit a majority of the North American population. Now, it's a little bit deeper in that, and that's why we have like a whole training center, a training aspect to our agency that we take our clients through so they can articulate their value proposition and their genius to make sure that it hits all 6. But yeah, at a very high level, that's how it works.
And we're going to talk about that training in literally like 2 minutes here. So now we have asked Brendan to give us this number. We just learned so much stuff. And Brendan, I can't tell you actually how thankful I am before we get into this last technique. Just thank you so much for being part of our audience. Just final technique that you use with celebrities like Taylor Swift that every business needs to learn and adopt immediately. I want to hear what that is. I want to be able to help our people understand this technique to help grab attention. But before we reveal this, we want to just remind you of a couple amazing special bonus offers and gifts that Brendan and Dropified are actually going to be producing today. First and foremost, I just wanted to reiterate you've heard a lot about Dropified. You heard a lot about the private label on demand plan. If you are not currently using this and you want to jump into supplement, CBD, pet or skincare spaces, normally it's a $2,000 program. We're actually going to be, just for the podcast listeners, giving this to all of our listeners, special bonus offer, $197 per month. It's month to month. There's no contract. Actually, we're going to throw in $2,500 of bonus gifts as well with how can you actually do this and find traffic with native traffic sources outside of Facebook and Google. And also, we're going to be providing over 100 label design templates to help you get started if you just suck at design. We're going to give you a nice template, pop in your business information, the key benefits and title, and then we're going to throw that in there. So again, if you want to learn more, you can just click on the button down below in the show notes, and we're going to get that. Now, that's Dropified, but Brendan actually has a killer one here as well. Brendan, I would love for you to talk about your free masterclass on the concept of hook point. You just kind of alluded to it, some of it, but can you just dive deep into what this hook point class is and how people can get a part of it and just what their next steps are for that.
Yeah, if they go to hookpoint.com, or actually they should go to masterclass.hookpoint.com, where they'll actually
I'll
get
put
it
the
for
link
free.
below for them as well, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's just, we have that special link where they can get access to the masterclass for free, where we really dive in to how to craft a hook point, how to really stand out in this 3-second world. So if they go there, they can get access to that masterclass for free.
Wow, that's incredible. And then should they do anything outside of that masterclass to just really get the best experience out of it? Like, should they be looking at your hook point book? Should they be reading the Million Followers, or what? How can they best prepare so that ultimately they were looking for the highest results coming from these strategies? So what do they need to do to prepare for that?
Yeah, so I would definitely check out the book, where they can get it. Actually, I would recommend that they go to book.hookpoint.com,
Okay.
because then we'll ship you the book. You just pay for shipping. We give it for free, and then you can get the masterclass along with that. Because I just looked at actually the masterclass.hookpoint, and they changed it to a fee-based model. So I would just go to book.hookpoint.com, opt in for the book. You just pay for shipping, and then you'll get the masterclass for free.
Oh, perfect.
But both of those together, I think will really put them on a solid path.
Man, what an amazing gift. Because I know that book sells for what, like $30 or $20 on Amazon. And then
yeah, it's like $26.
Yeah. And so not only are you getting the book for free, you just have to pay for shipping, but you're also getting the masterclass, which again is now a fee. It's not free to the public. This is something super special just for this podcast listeners. Guys, we want to make sure that we're bringing value to you. And so you have 2 offers on the table here, actually 3 now with the book. So you have Brendan's book and Hook Point, How to Stand Out in the 3-Second World, as well as access to the masterclass for free. All you have to do is pay shipping for the book, and we'll put that link down below, as well as the Dropified private label on demand. If you are wanting to create your own brand of supplements, CBD, skincare, or pet products for only $197 a month, and where you can literally throw up labels in just minutes and apply these amazing strategies. And you will see that down below as well. All right, now let's get to this last point. I've held you on long enough. Let's talk about, Brendan, the #1 technique used by celebrities, just like Taylor Swift, that every business needs to learn and adopt immediately in order to grab attention when we're talking about brand advocates.
Yeah, so this was one of the lessons that I learned in working with Taylor Swift, is people really don't realize that she's the reason for her success. It wasn't some massive record label or millions of dollars of marketing budget. What she understood that made her so successful is this one-to-one interaction with fans. She understood that each time that she responded to a comment, each time she signed an autograph, each time she took a photo with a fan, not only did it turn that fan into a fan for life, but it turned that fan into a brand advocate, somebody that was willing to share her music, share her merchandise, her concert tickets, whatever it may be, with everybody they know. And because of the world that we live in today, we're no longer living in this world where when you share something, you're just telling the people that you have access to, like those inner circle of 3 to 5 people that you meet in person, but you share it on social media, reaching hundreds, thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of people. Now, that evolved over time with Taylor, because eventually it got to a point where she could not interact with every fan one-to-one. So what did she do? She was brilliant and took it to the next level. So that's when you saw her showing up at bridal showers, showing up on doors with Christmas gifts, having a sleepover with her friends to listen to the new album, because they turn that into content. And that content now gets syndicated out to tens of millions, in some cases, hundreds of millions of people. And the fans watching that now see Taylor cares about me as a fan, even though it's not me in that kind of it's not me sitting in that living room, or Taylor approaching that individual fan. So that's how she figured out how to scale it. Because when we talk about advertising, we talk about growing our brand, you never want to be in a position where you have to earn every customer. How can you turn your customers into brand advocates for you? Because that brings down your overall cost per acquisition and increases your lifetime value. Like for me, when I'm sending books to friends or influencers, I always send multiple copies, 2, 3, sometimes 5 copies, depending on the person, because I know that that person can then just give that copy to somebody they know as a gift. And that just exponentially grows. Instead of me sending one copy to one person, sure, that person could tell people they know, but then they've got to go to Amazon or they got to go to place to buy it, versus if it's an influential person, I'm like, here's one book for you and for a few of your friends if you know somebody that could be helpful.
Wow. Man,
And it
that's
seems simple.
unbelievable. And it's so simple, but
So simple, and people may say it's common sense, but there's so few people that focus on that because they're focused on how do I win the next client myself versus how do I turn my current client or current customer base into more. Like, I literally just did a hook point strategy session with a client that was just that, is they have a big base of 60,000 people that listen to them and they want to sell a bunch of books. And I was like, well, why are you going to go off and go sell books to other people that don't know who you are, and instead give books to all of those 60,000 people that can then share it with everybody they know, because that will just turn into crazy exponential growth.
That's incredible. I love that so much. I love that so much. You know, one last thing, and then I'll let you go here, Brendan, is when you say that, you know, it's funny. I didn't know about any of this. I've never met you before this show. And when I said earlier that I'll have a history in Amazon, we have a number of toys that we sell on Amazon. I'm not doing a plug-in for my toys here, but I remember when we were just starting out, we were thinking, how the heck are we supposed to get this toy like selling? Because I've never done this before, you know, and so what do we do? And the only natural thing that we could think of is the toys designed. It was a girl slime kit, and we had just said, well, let's give it to a bunch of girls and let's just ask them if they would want to play with it and what they like about it. But then let's give them like 5 or 6 other ones. Like, we'll just get a whole table of them because we had a truckload of them. So why not? Right. And you know what ended up happening was the craziest thing is, you know, there were slime parties happening all over the town that we were living in with our product because people heard about it. And then slime parties became a thing. And I was like, what the heck is a slime party? And I realized it was these girls that actually started this. And I mean, the parents hated us for the longest time, but you know what? The kids had fun. And it became an Amazon top seller for years. Not because of these girls, but because we were able to showcase that this is something that people like doing. And it was just sheer word of mouth. I have no idea how the heck we even got the success that we did, but I know it started with those girls. And so we just give them toys for free now. We just say, hey, listen, can you have a macrame party? Can you have a whatever party?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it works, right? And so anyway, it's pretty rocking strategy, man. This is cool. All right, guys, thank you so much. I know it's a little bit longer than most of our episodes, but man, this was absolute gold. I would honestly recommend that you go back with a pad and paper. You make sure you're writing down these notes. What Brendan is talking about not only is in his books, but it comes from the research that went into his books. It is a part of his master classes. And these are designed to give you very successful strategies to get started, but don't just stop there. Don't just listen to this. Don't just say, okay, that was nice. Actually act on it. We've given you amazing opportunities, amazing bonus offers that no one else is getting, both from Brendan and from Dropified. So I encourage you to take action today. Thank you, Brendan, so much for joining us today. It's been an awesome pleasure. Honestly, the conversation went deeper than I actually expected. So thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom. It's been a real honor chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And to everyone watching, I want to say thank you for tuning in with us, and be sure to join us on our next episode. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Hello again, Ecom Masters. Mike was here again with a big thank you for sticking with us to the end of this episode. I know how valuable your time is, and I want to congratulate you for setting yourself apart from the pack by investing your attention into this podcast. Now, make sure to maximize this time by taking notes while it's still fresh, listening to the episode multiple times if you need to, and implementing what you have learned right away into your own business. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more training and want to learn the step-by-step methodology that you need to build the e-com business of your dreams, I want you to join me for an exclusive invite-only training that I'm only giving specifically for podcast listeners. Now, in it, we're going to share the secrets of what we've used to scale Dropified into the 2019 5,000 number 55 fastest growing company in America. You will not find this information anywhere else, guaranteed. To get immediate 100% free access, all you got to do is go to dropified.com/podcast-special, or just click the link below and in the show notes, and I will see you on the other side.